Hey YouTube, welcome back to our channel. My name is Yelena.
And I'm Bjorn.
And this is Vikings React, where we take a look at some of your favorite Viking TV shows and discuss their historical accuracies.
So we're back with Vikings, Season 6, Part 1, Episode 4, Part 1.
Здравей свій, Івара, безикостяної, та я тусу парабуді.
He's the first person to say his name right.
Oleg is nothing but you. You are everything. And everything here belongs to you. Remember that?
So sweet. So we talked about this a little bit before, but just to reiterate here a little bit, now that we're seeing it kind of be brought to the forefront, the line of succession when it came to Prince Oleg. He was never meant to take on the rule. He was the regent for Igor. When Rurik died, it was Igor that was to ascend to the throne. However, when that happened, Igor was too young for that to happen. He was too young to rule. And in his stead, Prince Oleg here is the one that took over the regency while Igor was growing up.
Right.
Now, through historical manuscripts, we don't 100% know whether Oleg was Rurik's brother or not. They made him brother in the show, which would kind of make sense that the regency would fall to the brother.
Absolutely. Yeah, because if, hypothetically, if Rurik didn't have a son, then the line of succession would mean that Oleg, his brother, would become the ruler.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that the person to fill in until the rightful heir came of age would be the next in line, I guess, for the throne. So he was to oversee, basically, and make sure that Igor, learned everything that he needed to in order to be an effective ruler by the time he came of age.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in the show, it does seem like he's kind of trying to keep that fact away from Igor.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious about that.
Yeah. Because I'm sure that would all be real confusing for a little child like that.
Of course.
You know?
But I'm also... It does seem like he's going to pick up on it very quickly. Especially now that he has Uncle Ivar poking around. Interesting tent design.
That's a quarter.
Yeah, I was going to say they look like just larger pop-up tents. Hi, sweetheart.
Hi, Kitty.
Yeah, we have a few examples of actual Viking tents, from Gokstad and Olsberg and things like that. They're just the basic, rectangular base A-frame upright tents that you see when you do reenactments that we all have, that we all sleep in and stuff like that. There's a few different designs of the time period, so there's differences for Anglo-Saxon tents and the Viking tents and things like that, but those were none of them.
Yeah, those are confusing to me.
Yep.
He also said you can forget about all that if you kill me.
It's just like you.
So I really appreciate that, because I suddenly have an urge.
Please don't.
Anyways, I just wanted to pause because this dude in the background is Edge for WWE wrestling.
Oh, that's him?
Yeah, that's him.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So this dude right here, he is an old WWE wrestler, but it's really cool because he was out of the wrestling thing for 9 years because of he broke his neck, and now he just announced a couple weeks ago that he's back in the game. So well done, Edge. Viking strength. Hell yeah.
Toast to him.
Skál.
I can wait.
Does he have a chainmail hoodie?
I think so.
He has a chainmail hoodie. That's stupid, but I now want a chainmail hoodie.
You can still be useful, can't you?
Yes, we can.
I need you to build better
47.
protections.
Not even that old.
Think of those doors as
She's
a-
older than they are.
Can't live without it, so we must defend it with our lives.
Hate this hairstyle that they put on her.
Also,
Then you retaliated for their death? No. No, Loki told us not to. He said the settlement could not survive through a cycle of killings.
I wanted them to finish that little conversation bit there. So Floki saying that not to like seek retaliation or compensation for his family being murdered, totally not accurate for like Norse society at the time.
Yeah. It doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, not at all. Any kind of like murder or killing like that, they'd have to seek compensation at the very least. Most often, as we know from the many Icelandic sagas where this happens, it would create some kind of blood feud and there'd be killings back and forth. Until it was just deemed like you guys need to stop murdering each other, basically.
Which it seems like it's kind of devolving into here a little bit, because he said that he killed his family, essentially, over that.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to see if he kind of said anything to that point where he eventually admitted, he still killed Avon and his whole family, which in the Viking Age, in Norse society at the time, would have been not accepted, but expected. That the Bjorn's little reaction of just like kind of like writing it off like for what Floki said, like that is totally true. That is so legitimate. Like anybody would have just like balked at the notion of, what do you mean you're telling me I can't like seek retaliation? Like how dare you say that I don't protect my family and uphold my honor? So like that whole little spiel was great.
In Vikingish society, some of the laws that we know of, at least in certain parts of Scandinavia and Iceland, was that if something did happen and if you killed somebody, you then had to immediately go and report it to somebody in the area. And in case of retaliation, you were able to walk by 2 houses but not a third, specifically for that reason, so that you wouldn't run into family and friends, or less of a chance of running into family and friends that way and being retaliated on right away. You were able to pass 2 houses, but then a third one you had to go and report the killing, in which case you then would have to go and pay the weregild to the family for the killing that you did. But like you said, it did spark blood feuds regardless.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you can't just kill somebody and expect nothing.
Exactly. It very, very often did it spark some kind of feud between the families, and you'd see, killings and compensation for those killings, and then back and forth for ages, essentially, to the point where I think in I want to say the 13th century, I'm not really sure, but sometime later on, blood feuds were actually illegal. Like, they were just like, you can't keep killing each other, guys. Stop it. We get it. It's bad. It sucks. Boo-hoo. Get over it. That whole little spiel, like, very un-Viking, un-Norse for Floki to say, like, let bygones be bygones. Perhaps a little bit of a Christianized tendency.
It is
to
interesting.
turn the other cheek.
It is interesting because the entire time that, at least from what I've seen of the Viking series, and I haven't, we both have not seen the last season, so we don't know what's exactly happened with Floki.
Yeah, last I remember with him, he was like wicked heathen, and then something happened, and then he discovered Islam, I think at some point when they were raiding in the Mediterranean with Björn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and he was like looking into that, and then we stopped mid-season, so I was like, I don't know what's going on. We missed the whole going to Iceland.
Last I saw of him was when he first reached Iceland.
Oh, you watched more than me.
Yeah, so
Okay.
he had sailed, and he was calling on Odin, and he was calling on the Norse gods essentially to help him through his journey. So he was still very much a heathen back then.
Right.
And the last I saw of him was when he landed on Iceland on the beach and didn't know where he was. He thought he reached Valhalla, I think. So, yeah, he was still a heathen the last time I saw of him. But yeah, maybe some Christianization happening there.
Yeah, who knows? But yeah, so at the time it would have been a little bit more of like a Christian philosophy to kind of turn the other cheek and forgive thy neighbor, as it were. But it would have absolutely been expected of you, hardline expected of you, to retaliate, seek compensation, if not by the sword, then by law. You can't just go around murdering family and let that be it. You'd at least have to get paid. At which point there'd still be like a horrible feud between the family. You'd still like hate each other, even if you did pay the price for the person, essentially, which would amount to, depending on the family, how well off they were, hundreds of silver. So that's well done, guys. Well done.
His reaction was spot on.
Yeah, his reaction was about to be my reaction. I was like, wait, hang on, they're probably going somewhere. So, yeah.
I had nothing to do with Loki's disappearance. I swear to you on my honor. You better pray to the gods that one day Floki returns to verify your story.
One quick point that I wanted to bring up, the promise that he made on his arm ring, that is a heavy promise to make. To make a promise on your arm ring was basically the mother of all promises.
Yeah, so it's kind of like how you would like bind your oath, essentially, like that. Like when you swore fealty to your chieftain, to your to Gothi, whatever it was, you would make the swear on your arm ring, and arm rings were commonly given to you by your chieftain, based on your merits, based on your service, essentially. And so it kind of reflects that Viking saying where it's like a gift always looks for a gift in return. It's kind of like you swear allegiance to your chieftain, to your jarl, and honor him and do good by him and serve him, and in exchange he gives you gifts of wealth and of renown and stuff like that, and by those gifts of that you receive from him, you continually swear your allegiance to him, essentially. So it's kind of like this constant cycle. But yeah, so one of the main gifts that would be given were arm rings. And it was common for them to be all the way up the arm, essentially, to have that many, because they were used to make oaths on and things like that. They were given as gifts and tokens back and forth between friends and sworn comrades. They were also actually cut up and used for exchange for
Quicksilver.
Yeah, Hacksilver for bartering, essentially, because they had a barter system in Norse society. There wasn't really they had coins, but there wasn't like an assigned value. Like there wasn't like a $1 coin and a $5 coin and things like that. It was based on the weight and the scale of the silver. So they used coins. They imported a ton from the Middle East and things like that, and they would eventually mint their own. But they were all portioned to be a certain weight, essentially. And so to match larger deals and things like that, or if you just were a couple coins too short, you could just pop this off and use your knife or an axe or something to cut off a chunk of it and throw that in to compensate, essentially. So yeah.
And the more arm rings you wore, the more honorable you were seen, and also richer you were seen.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because to your point, arm rings were also given as sort of like rewards. If you did something that was great that your jarl really appreciated, he could give you a second, a third, a fourth arm ring, essentially. And some people did collect a lot of them that they wore.
Absolutely.
So it showed wealth, it showed renown, it showed the honor. Honor was very important to the Vikings. Yeah. You lived or died by your honor.
Exactly. In the Viking Age, they didn't have legal contracts and stuff to, force you or to get it in writing per se. Everything that they did and made oaths on was all by their word, which is something that we kind of lack in our modern age.
In the modern age, it's called a credit score.
Yeah, pretty much.
Honor was their credit score.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great way of looking at it, honestly.
I don't want to see you anymore. I have nothing left to say to you.
To him because we missed it. But I feel real bad.
Yeah, he's really struggling with some PTSD. Yeah, that sucks a lot.
I just remember last I saw of Ivar, he was terrifying. He did turn into a very terrifying character, leading the armies and everything. He was just intense.
Yeah.
That's the last I saw of him. So seeing him as he is right now is actually a little bit interesting because his character seems to have evolved. But whatever happened last season, Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I didn't watch any last season, so it's hard to say. But I mean, we've gotten glimpses, you know, with his like burnt wife, and he's talked about it. So we've already like killed his wife, and like burnt her or stabbed her. I don't know. I think he like burned her alive, which is horrible.
it seems a
Yeah, like horrible is not the right word for it. I don't know what the next thing up from horrible is. But it's that.
Let us know in the comments below what actually happened here. We're probably gonna go back and watch it at some point.
Just for reference sake.
Yeah, just for reference sake, and we're also talking about doing a follow-up series, just talking about the seasons that we have watched already, and just some talking points, the same way that we're doing with Norsemen. So let us know what happened here, because we're actually kind of interested.
Lost completely. One point I want to make, I guess, to tie into this since we were stopped already, the concept of drunkenness in Viking stuff, because we all know the Vikings drank
Mead.
booze. Yeah, we all know the Vikings drank. You know, ale was a huge thing, feasting, horns being brought around, and stuff like that. But the actual concept of drunkenness is not really something that you hear a lot. You assume it took place a ton, just because of the levels that we assume the Vikings drank at. And like in the day, you know, they had like essentially like farmhouse ales and things like that would have been much lesser percentage and drank more casually here and there. But they were actually, again, so I know I've referenced it in the past, but in the Hofemal, the Sayings of the High One, which is all of Odin's wisdom passed down to mortal men, he actually cautions against drinking in excess. He cautions against a lot of things in excess, but drinking, you know, first and foremost, essentially. So the quote essentially goes, less good than they say for the sons of man is the drinking oft of ale, for the more they drink, the less they can think and keep watch over their wits. And Odin, if you read the Hofemal, was very conscientious of not saying too much. A lot of the wisdom, it's all spanning, but a lot of the wisdom that he kind of passes down is to be careful of what you say. You know, to kind of be more reserved and not speak too openly, because you end up basically seeming like a fool or spilling your guts and admitting all your secrets and things like that. And it gives people power. Because knowledge is power. And Odin was a god of knowledge and also a god of secrets. You know, he learned the secrets of the runes and things like that. So one thing he always cautions people against is to drink too much. You shouldn't do it, because then you'll be a blubbering fool and not able to kind of keep a sound, solid mind and things like that. So kind of see it like the worst case scenario essentially here is an interesting take on things. You know, especially in a society that you kind of associate a lot with drinking, like as a pastime. Just like, oh, what are we gonna do? It's Tuesday afternoon and we did all our work. We're gonna get crushed. Let's do it. So it's interesting to see that, but also to kind of imbue the whole just like human struggle of like fighting your inner demons in a bottle of ale, as we are wont to do, because that's been around with us for centuries.
Yep.
So that's heavily relatable.
And it's not changing.
Nope, it's not going to change anytime soon. But yeah, just a little point to make about how they might have viewed it from then. Don't drink too much.
You were dreaming.
That's creepy.
What is it?
Is it true? Do I really own all the land and all the sky?
I wonder if he's trying to set up an alliance with the next king.
Ooh, you know what? That's a good point. What if he's trying to set up something to oust Oleg and basically become the regent for Igor?
Or best friends with the next king. Or that.
Whatever. Want to make a bet?
Sure. How much?
Don't look.
Thank you so much for watching, guys. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell so you can be notified of our future videos, and we'll see you in the next one.
Like cows. And we can, like your firstborn, or sheep, or something. You know?
My firstborn? Your firstborn?
Sheep.
Oh, sheep.
Yeah, the firstborn sheep.
Or the
We get to,
firstborn sheep.
the person gets to name it. Or
Ah.
maybe we can just bet like some of the more like the Viking coin or something like that. Like I know you don't really have too many. We have the 4 technically that I gave you, but
That you've been keeping and somehow lost for a time.
I haven't lost them. I know exactly where they are. They're with the rest of my fucking coins.
I want a horse.
But don't we all vote for Vermin Supreme?